Welcome to The Real Deal, everyone. I'm Christina Orangio. This is our first episode, and I'm here with local psychologist Dr. Julie Morrison. She is the founder and director of HPA Live Well. I know you want me to call you Julie, right?
Yes, please.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
I'm excited that we're starting this.
Oh, it's great.
So I want to tell everybody what this is about so they get the sense of what the real deal is, right? So this is going to give us a chance to break down real life concerns that people have with a meaningful, authentic conversation. And we're going to try to deal with some of the daily challenges that we face. And Julie will provide some meaningful, real life advice, give us some guidance so we learn how to navigate this crazy, messy, beautiful thing we call life. It isn't easy.
No, it isn't, but it's doable.
It's doable. And we were just talking about how we're both, well, what is it, Thursday?
Yeah, I think so.
We're exhausted.
Yeah.
You get to this point and we're, back into school, back into activities. I don't know, personally, I'm being 100% honest here. When I get to Thursday, I'm running out of steam and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And you were mentioning this before we started this, that particularly now, it's because we were out of practice for a while in the summer. And now we're back into this heavy routine.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about it all the time. It sort of feels like it's the beginning of the year, right? Like we're all kind of conditioned to that. Everybody knows that their lives sort of started again in September. So you have like this lull, and it was calmer, maybe, depending on whatever travel you did, travel sports. But then, you go back to school and everything's new. Your schedule is new. The kids buy new clothes to go to school, right?
Yep.
It's school supplies, the classes you're going to take, all the things. And you're sort of out of the norm of, when do I leave my house to drop this one off here? What happens, what do I have to do at work to make sure I can get this done for this person? Or even if you're somebody who doesn't have children and now you're still in the I go to work every day or I go to the gym and now the number of people who are there is different or the timing of traffic is different. Like everything opens up in September.
Right. We were saying this. I mean, January 1st doesn't really feel as much like a new year as it does, especially, I think, if you do have children, which we know a lot of this conversation will center around that. And, full disclosure here, I have two children, a 19-year-old who's in college, my 16-year-old, Luke. He is in sophomore year of high school, and, we're navigating all that with him. A lot of people know about Luke because I share a lot with regard to his Down syndrome and just trying to help other people navigate this. But it's busy. Even with my daughter in college, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to have tons more time. No, I don't. You fill it with other things. And we're so busy with work. And you have two children. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So I have a senior in high school and a freshman in high school. So bookending that next stage.
And senior, that's a big emotional. We're going to do a whole segment on senior year. That's hard.
It's funny because I think that one of the big things that have come up, we were kind of talking about too, is the last first or first last or whatever it is I was supposed to say. I don't even know what those things are anymore. But it's so much stress on doing it right at the end, right? This last shot at this year.
Yeah.
And these guys the kids are so into it and they're doing their thing. But then us as parents, we sit there and we're like, oh my God, what's next? It was funny. My daughter had an appointment, a doctor's appointment, and we had to make whatever the follow-up would be. And they said, okay, same time next year. And they offered me something at the end of August. And I was like, yeah, sure. And she goes, no, I'm not going to be here.
She's going to be in college.
Now, me and the woman who was taking my information, we were both like, oh my gosh. The two, we had each other in the moment. Right? My daughter's like, oh, okay, get a grip. But,
let's move on.
But it was crazy to think about just one, loop around that. It's crazy.
What a change. So you're in it in terms of how busy you'll be with activities. But, we all can relate, like you said. These schedules really ramp up. I find myself, as much as I think, okay, I've got this. I've got the routine down. It's going well for like 2 days. and then I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
How do we not get so overwhelmed so quickly?
Well, I think the first thing we have to talk about is the expectations of how well it's supposed to go, right? I think some of the overwhelm comes with, I was supposed to do it perfectly. If X didn't happen, then that means Y. And I think that, just because maybe you left a little laundry in the dryer doesn't mean you didn't get your kids and your family ready for the week, right?
Yeah.
And that I think that what it feels like is instead of overwhelmed, I think that what happens is people feel things are getting out of control, right? Where it feels like I don't have a grasp on how to do it all.
Right.
And so it feels, again, to your overwhelm of how am I going to do all of these things? And does that, and what does that mean about me? What does that mean about what I'm able to do for my family?
Yeah,
And I
you're
think that a
questioning
lot
yourself.
of you do,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of self-loathing and self-judgment and things like that come from it because we have all these expectations and then you turn say to social media and somebody's like I make my kids the healthiest treats. I'm like, well, okay, well I could maybe do that,
Right.
but you judge. Well, what does that mean if I didn't do that?
Right.
And I think that's a really hard thing. So to answer the question, I think the first thing we have to do is be reasonable about what those goals are.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great to make dinner every night.
Right. It's
But
not
what if
happening.
it's not going to
And
happen
I love to cook, but who,
every night? Yeah, right.
Right.
So what happens if it doesn't? Does that mean that you failed your kids? Or does that mean
Yeah.
that I'm going to do my best 3 out of 5 nights during the week to make dinner? And on those other 2 nights, we're at least going to sit down together. That's a win. Right? But if we reevaluate, okay, so 2 out of my 5 nights, I didn't make dinner.
Yeah.
Does that mean I didn't show up for my family? Right? And I think that we have to be reasonable about that and stop comparing to whatever else is out there. Set your own goals and meet those.
What do they say all the time? Comparison kills, right?
Well, it
It's
does.
Just, it does not help you in the least. It sounds like to me, and I know I fall victim to this, is, sometimes we have to give ourselves a little grace, right? We're just being too hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's just human nature that you want things to go well.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you would give the advice to your friend or you would say to them, hey, you're doing a great job.
Right.
But it's not okay to say it to you. Maybe you
Yourself.
should do just a little bit better. But why should you do a little bit better? And what is better? Better
Yeah.
is really unattainable because better just keeps going, right? And so we tee ourselves up to keep chasing this thing, whatever it happens to be. And then the other question is, well, what's the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to those 5 nights a week. If ultimately we look at research, okay, it's great. The number one thing is having a family dinner. Is it great if you can make, food from home because maybe it's, store-bought things that you pull together and maybe that's a little healthier? Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
But the time together actually is what's more valuable. Why aren't we looking more at that versus the dotting of the I's and crossing the T's and doing these certain things?
Right, that's so much more important. You actually brought up something that I wanted to discuss as well, and it's specifically about this point, that how do you find that time for connection? Because you almost feel like you're just on the hamster wheel. Like, wait a second here, especially like in your situation, you have a senior.
Right.
I want to maximize these moments and have some good conversations. And again, they're teens, so maybe they don't want to talk to you until 10 o'clock at night, which is really challenging when you get up at 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
Thinking, oh, now she wants to talk to me. This was, before she went to college. But you want to be present, right? You want to be present in that moment. So that's where you kind of sacrifice the sleep.
Yeah, right. But you put a lot of pressure on doing that part right too,
Yeah.
right? So first of all, your win in all of that is that she wanted to talk to you,
Right.
right?
Yay.
Because the thing is in that moment she chose to talk to you, but that's because of all of the moments before. See, kids don't just sit there and say this one time when this really hard thing came up, I need to talk to you now. It was, you've shown me that you're a reliable person throughout all of these days and all of these years of my life, that now something, I need to talk to you, and it might be 10:30 at night, but I know that you're going to show up. And that's why I keep asking you. Don't forget to take those wins, because it takes the pressure off just that moment, and you realizes you really nailed it over those last 18 years.
So, okay, so even if you get around the dinner table, once or twice a week, but this is another thing that I find, and I know you're in this too with sports, with your daughter, right?
And my son, trust me.
And your son. Okay. So they have activities.
Yep.
So is it dinner, or is it some random, I don't know, block of time when everybody just happens to be in the same household? Because half the time they're at practices. There's no time for family dinner for so many people who are
Right. So
watching
here's
this.
the thing, is that the prevention around family dinner is, let's air quote it, it's more time. So family dinner was when, traditionally, years and years ago, was when everybody was supposedly home. And so that was supposed to be this protective barrier against some issues. I think what we want to recognize is that time comes up whenever you can grab it. So one of the really cool things is, like my son, for example, he plays lacrosse, and we drive all the way out to Syracuse and back again for practice, right? That is a 2-hour there and a 2-hour home.
That's good talk time.
stuck in that car with me. And it can go anywhere from, doing homework to him, telling me about whatever I don't know, asking him about. And it's funny, sometimes he'll be like, great, Mom's taking me. Was this going to be like a TED Talk? Yeah, it could be. It could be. We'll see what happens.
I completely agree with this. I did this with my daughter. She played volleyball, and, we were very, very involved with club and high school, but we had tournaments. And whenever we were on those tournaments, same thing, 2-3 hours, sometimes 3.5. But I treasure those times because that's when we got to talk, or we were in a hotel room together. Yeah. Sometimes they, for a club, you're not with your, teammates, you're with your family. And so you get a little time. So you got to really when you find those moments, just go for it, I guess.
Well, and I think the other thing is to slow down and not forget that those are great moments. So, as you're lugging the coolers and as you're packing the bags and you're doing the laundry and you're, trying to make your hotel room not smell like equipment, right. And you have moments where you're like, oh my gosh, this is never ending. It is ending. And I think that, making sure that, because that's the stuff when you retrospectively look back and go, it was great. It was a lot. But it was great.
It was great.
I think that finding that as stress and reframing it as a gift is great. And it doesn't have to be family dinner. It is time. It is time. And it's not a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
It's not, oh my God, if I didn't have 30 minutes, it didn't count.
Right. Well, trust me, I know from experience that you're going to look back on these times with your daughter and remember them, because I'll be certain places thinking, oh, I love doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to have so much more of this conversation. One of the things I want to talk about is how you kind of like become an Uber or a chauffeur.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little monotonous. So we're going to talk about that
sure.
when we come back. So stay tuned, everybody. Deal, everyone. I'm Christina Arangio, and we're continuing our conversation with Dr. Julie Morrison. Every time I say it, I know you're like, oh, don't call me Dr. Morrison. Julie, we appreciate you being here so much. Sure. This is so much fun, kind of unpacking these things that we all experience and feel.
Sure.
One of those things we were talking about is, in this phase of our lives, the kids have so many activities. I did this with my daughter, but now it's ramping up with my son. Now he's 16. He's got more going on. He's got lifting. He's got best buddies. There are more clubs. I love it. I love it. He's got unified basketball, bowling. But you kind of feel like you're doing nothing but just taking them from place to place to place when they can't drive.
Sure.
So you've got two different situations here personally, right?
Yes. Yep. One that needs a ride and one that's driving.
Oh, boy, which is a whole other set of concerns.
It sure is.
I remember.
Yeah, hold on. I'll just go check Life 360 real quick.
Exactly, like every minute. No, you don't want to be that, oh gosh, it's hard not to be that helicopter parent, but you love to know that there's a way that you can reach them and check on them.
Right.
I've certainly done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every mom
so,
has.
I mean, it goes right back to what we were talking about, too, is, trying to find the valuable time. It is hard to, you pull in from work and then turn around and pull right out again to go do something else. Yeah. And listen, sometimes kids aren't super demonstrative with their gratitude. They're not like, oh, my, thank you so much. This was so wonderful.
Almost
I know you worked
never
all
in teenage years.
Yeah,
it's rare.
Not really.
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't mean they're not grateful.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to find ways to fill your bucket a little bit different. Realize that the fact that you're not so lame that they don't want you to drive them and their friends, that's a win.
That's
right?
true.
Or the time where your kid is busy, that's a gift. The fact that your child has stuff to do that's, anchoring them to community and connection is a big deal.
Oh, yeah. We want them to have those things.
Being able to take them to something that they're good at.
Yes.
Right? And sharing these wins where you're able to say to them, you nailed it,
and
right?
you're so proud of them. It's so exciting, especially with sports. It's such a thrill to watch them.
Absolutely.
I mean, both my kids, I know you feel the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they get older, right? And so now, we'll bookend it with, my son, we still drive, obviously. And my daughter can drive. And there's those moments of that. I don't think there's anything more difficult to, and you can really feel the relinquishing of the control as you're watching, as you're like, you've got a teen driver where you're teaching them how, right? And they're going along the way and you're like, okay,
and you're doing that
fine.
phantom foot pedal.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't work. Learning doesn't
How about
work.
this?
No.
Where you put your arm to like protect them and like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, doesn't work. Or neither does talking in a very soft voice. My daughter looked at me and goes, I'd actually rather have you yell at me.
See, that's your training though,
That's
right?
We're
I'm
going to
going
be fine.
calm,
This is a
cool.
roundabout. Yeah, I know what it is. Oh my God. But I think it is that, right? And you do watch them on apps of Life 360 and how fast are they going and who are you with? And, you know, and I think that, you know, it's those moments of their independence. And remember that being a little rude once in a while, not disrespectful.
Right,
I'm
right.
not saying that's fine, right?
Yep.
But pushing those boundaries is the healthiest things your kids can do. They're supposed to push a little. They're supposed to, you know, be home at 10 and push to 10:02. And it's your job to get pushed as a parent to say 10:02 isn't 10. And
Right.
because it's not that I really care that you're here 2 minutes late, but your boss will.
Right.
You know, when you're supposed to be there at 8 o'clock and you're 8:02, you're late, right? And so it's an interesting thing. I think it's also, and this is interesting, I was having this conversation the other day around as kids get older, setting rules and punishing, right? Where an older teen or a teenager will say to their parents, am I in trouble? And I think towards that senior year, or their freshman, sophomore in college, and they're doing their thing, and they get nervous, am I in trouble? At that point, sort of the opinion that you can't really sort of be in trouble anymore. Now it's about, here are the consequences.
Yeah, I was just going to say consequences.
You decide if they're worth it to you.
Yeah.
And it's a really weird transition.
Shifting.
Absolutely. And it's a weird shift when you have a kid or other children at home that aren't ready for that.
Right.
Right? Because they are younger.
Yes.
That they still deserve what the older ones got in terms of the guidance.
Discipline is, do you even call it discipline anymore? I mean, it looks different, you know, they go to school. I completely understand that because I'm in that position right now. Obviously, my son's still got, you know, a bunch of years. But with my daughter being in school now, when she comes home, and that's the other thing you mentioned this, you know, that maybe at times you're like, oh, gosh, they don't even seem like they're being very grateful. It would be nice to get a thank you every once in a while. But one of the things that I have witnessed now, and I've heard this from so many friends who have children that go away, you start to see things turn a little bit, and they're in a different environment, and they're more grateful. And then I'm starting to hear things like, hi, Mom, how was your day? Like when she checks in. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. And they're in a different mode because they're used to being on their own. And I think they emerge more as this adult. And you see glimpses of it.
And they realize the things they have to now do for themselves that you once were doing.
Yeah.
And I think there's a value-driven sort of message there of how you did all this and did all that, right?
And there's gratitude. I think there's gratitude.
There is. And that's your investment. You know, you're raising your kids, you invest, right? And we are only as happy as our most unhappy kid, as comfortable as our most uncomfortable kid.
So true.
They will never get that until they have kids. And they shouldn't be expected to, right? But we also have to recognize that despite the fact that you feel everything they feel, you're not them. They're not you. You know, maybe you needed to go out with friends every single weekend, but maybe they don't.
Right.
Maybe that's not their thing. Maybe for one of them it is, and for another one it isn't. Maybe those are the pieces, and so we have to adapt as we learn who they are as people. And that is so hard.
Well, it is. And then, you know, so if we're talking about the younger ones, and if you are still in the throes of, you know, being the carpool lady or just, you know, the Uber, that can be a little monotonous.
Well, it can be.
I mean, I guess what we have to do then is think, I'm going to remember these days, and it doesn't last forever, right? And I'm there. I see that now with my daughter being gone, and all those things I used to do with her, I don't do anymore. So it's a period of time, right?
Yeah. And I think that also being willing to see the good in all of these different stages, right? In that, because even if you just focus in on, you know, your daughter's now in college, and so you don't get to do those things, those were really great gifts that you had early, and now this is a different one, right? This is forcing a different kind of communication. This is a different kind of letting her flex that independent muscle, and you being able to maybe be a little less available sometimes, and letting her use your guidance versus you doing, right? That's a really hard thing.
That's so true.
We're growing with them, and it's uncomfortable. But it's funny, we say this at work all the time, is that discomfort is a requirement for change and growth. It just is. It's never truly comfortable.
Especially as a parent.
as a parent and
it's hard
expect
to,
it.
yeah,
Expect it.
expect it to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You really can't be their best friend. I mean, you
No.
still have to be the parent, and there are going to be times where they're not going to like you, and we know that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
true. But sometimes, as you know, that that time is passing, sometimes you find it difficult to like, well, do I really want to be so harsh on this point right now? Because
right, but you can also get it wrong. I think we want to also give parents permission to get it wrong. One of the best things you can do for your kids is learn how to apologize to them. To be able to say, I don't really love how I talked to you. I meant what I said.
Yeah.
But I don't love how I said it, right? Because you're modeling for them what they should do in their relationships.
So true.
And being willing to do that, but you also be willing to take care of yourself.
I know we were talking that this is the other piece. You're so busy, you're so overwhelmed. How do we make time for us? But not just make time for us, make sure we're not neglecting our own health.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because the beat goes on. So, as our kids get older, turns out, so do we. And so I think that, what that recognizes is, we want to be as in our lives as we can be. And I think that requires that we invest in that, right? We invest in their health, we invest in their wellness, we watch them like hawks, they don't miss physicals, they have an ache or a pain.
Right.
What do we do for us? Because we're also modeling that for them for when they take care of their adult selves, right, as they're older.
That's such an important point that we have to remember. Everything we're doing, I mean, we know they're sponges. So if we are not making appointments, sure, a lot of times we're good about making an appointment for your husband, but you have to do it for yourself because then they won't do it for themselves someday.
Right, exactly. And I think that, you have to be willing, and you also have to be willing to take care of, yes, it's doctor's appointments and, screenings and all of these things that make us all uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But there's also doing the things that we know will make us healthy. For some people, it's being able to, get exercise. But maybe for somebody else, it's to go out for coffee with your friends. That doesn't mean you've chosen you or your friends or whatever over your family. It's just that it was your own time out and it fills your bucket. That's okay, to find those things out.
Because it makes your family stronger if you fill your bucket, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And also, you have to still be there when they're going to the next chapter.
Oh, I think about that one all the time, right? And I know every woman does. Whether you have children or not, you want to be there for your spouse or you want to be there for your children. And so we have to make that effort to be there for ourselves and make those appointments.
Well, and we avoid that stuff too because it creates anxiety
Sure.
and it causes, us to really recognize that it's true that we're getting older too, right? And what does that mean? And what are the challenges that we're faced with when it comes to that?
Yeah.
But being willing to kind of do that stuff head on is important.
I know that one of the things we'd like to do each week is have, it's the real deal, but a real challenge of something that we can work on in ourselves maybe, and we can always talk about it the next week too. Like, how'd that go for you?
Yeah.
And it's for everybody out there, but obviously
Right.
we can share for us. So what's one thing we can kind of take away from our conversation today that you think maybe we should try to focus on for the next week?
Well, I think the first thing is that we know that we decided we wanted to do that because we thought that if people could set goals, they would have a better shot at actually seeing some change, movement, whatever, right? And so I guess if I were to summarize a goal like that from this conversation, it would be to challenge people to carve out time, meaningful time, however it comes, with whoever's important to you over this next week, as well as do something that fills your bucket, so to speak, that is genuinely something that's yours.
I kind of like this. If it's an assignment, I feel like I have to do it. So maybe that's going to help us. All right, so we'll talk about it next week.
Yes.
And we're still talking about what the subject will be for next week. So we hope everybody will tune in again. But one thing that I wanted to put out there too is that you can message me on Facebook, Christina Arangio WTEN, and tell me a topic that you think would be great for Julie and I to talk about, where we get some fabulous advice from Dr. Morrison from HPA Live Well, who prefers I call her Julie. But anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
and
it's fun.
This is the first edition of Real Deal, but a lot more to come. And we hope you have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time here for The Real Deal.
Bye.